What's up, fellas?
Good evening, gentlemen.
Howdy.
Well, we're back again. Here almost 4 years into this thing. We already got 74 folks on here. That's awesome. It's just amazing to me to believe that people keep coming back, but I think it's been a lot of fun the last few years. How are
There's
you
always
fellas doing
something to
this?
talk about, isn't there?
Yeah, man, it seems like, and even the same topic seems to change a little bit here or there. And every time you talk about something, it seems like you learn something new. Even if you've talked about it over and over again, there's still something new to learn every time. And in large part because of the folks in the comments that put ideas in here and guests we've had on, and then of course between the three of us, I think we've passed a lot of ideas, tried a lot of different things, and we've seen a lot of success, a lot of failure too. But because of that, I think it always gives us something to talk about and to learn from.
Well, and as most folks know, it's not just about beekeeping. It's about being our brother's keeper. And it seems like as we grow in our journey as beekeepers, this community also kind of grows, and you get to know folks and you consider them family. And when they're having a tough time, there's a lot of folks who are willing to jump in and just show their support the best way that you can. But there's definitely a great group of folks here who aren't afraid to share what they believe and lift people up in prayer. And when people are having a hard time, just kind of be there for them. And I think that's what makes this community so great. And that's what makes this beekeeping chat unique and great, is that it's full of great folks.
Yeah, I agree. Brian, how you doing up there, man?
Oh, I don't know. I haven't looked at the bees.
Yeah. It's been a crazy couple of weeks for the country. I know you've got a lot going on too. But anyway.
So just to, I haven't even filmed anything. So had a lot going on, but I wanted to make it in here tonight. So no idea why, but I just,
feel like you needed to.
Yeah. So those that do not know, so it started. Well, I got to thank everybody for the birthday wishes last. What day was that? Was it? I don't know. Whatever day it was. I don't even know what day. What was that? Saturday was my birthday.
The 20th.
More.
So the 20th. Yeah, that's
yeah.
Saturday.
So I want to thank everybody for that. But let's see. A week and a half ago, my father-in-law. Well, it started before that, but a week and a half ago, he was discharged from the hospital, and he went home on hospice, and Monday he passed away. Yesterday, then, I mean, I guess for some of this, the only thing I can do is kind of chuckle, because it doesn't even seem like all of this should happen. But yesterday, then, my sister-in-law had a double mastectomy for breast cancer. My father-in-law had mesothelioma lung cancer due to asbestos exposure. He was a pipe fitter for years. So cancer just was too much for him. But my sister-in-law, she'll be okay, but it's just, it's a lot. And while my wife was sitting at the bedside for Joe, she gets a call. And we found out yesterday she's got a melanoma. So that should be okay, though, but it's a lot. So
yeah, sometimes it does good just to kind of pull away for a few minutes and just
Yeah.
your friends, so to speak, and get away from her a little bit the best you can. But you've reached out to Greg and me. I know, Greg, I know you've been praying for Brian. I have too, and so many others that are having issues. But we're definitely on our thoughts and prayers, Brian. I know everyone in the chat feels the same way, but just hang in there, man. It's all going to work out the way it's supposed to. That's one thing about faith. You just know it's going to work out the way it's supposed to. You got to trust, and it's going to be okay.
Yeah, my wife, she went over, because she works in nursing, so she went over to sister-in-law's place just to help her. She's got JP drains, and she was just, instructing them on what to do with the drain care and all that kind of stuff. And on the way from their place to our place, is her parents. So she stopped by there just check on her mom and chat for a little bit. And her mom could tell something was wrong. We didn't even want to say anything just because it's like, it's 2 days ago, her husband of 41 years passes away. And she could just tell. And she was like, Tara, what is it? And she knew that she had some stuff done. And her mom has had some issues, skin-related issues in the past before. Nothing major, though. Not like this. And she said, is there a problem with your leg? She just knew. So
hang in there, brother. It's gonna be okay.
Paul Hill, what a week.
No doubt, man. What a week on top of a couple of other weeks. It's been wild.
You're in good spirits, Brian. A lot of folks, not to take the focus off what you just said, but a lot of folks aren't grounded, and they don't have the Lord to lean on in these tough times.
Yeah.
And so I know you're putting on a smiley face and you're pushing through, but it's easier to say, it's easy for folks just to say, hang in there, it'll get better. And sometimes I know those words seem, a little hollow, but because of that faith and that rock that you cling to, I think a lot of folks who can't understand how folks can find peace in the middle of a storm. This is a great example, of that. When the Bible says that God knew us before the foundations of the earth were laid, knew every hair on our head, and has a plan for our life, it's easy for us to just say, well, that's automatically going to be this fairy tale story and nothing's ever going to go wrong. But he never promised that there wouldn't be storms. He did say he'd be right there, right alongside us along the way. And in some weird way, even in the hard times, there's a certain peace that passes all understanding in those moments. And I was thinking of you this afternoon, Brian, after we had talked. There's an old gospel song that I love, one of my favorites, and it's called God on the Mountain. And lyrically, it's, the God on the mountain is the God in the valley. The God in the good times is the God in the bad. The God of the day is the God of the night. It's the same. He's the same yesterday, today, and tomorrow. But, praise God that we've got that rock to cling to lean on. I can't imagine what life would look like through those storms if we didn't have him.
I'll say one other thing, and I don't want to cast just sadness on the night, but I told Greg this earlier. Bruce, you'll kind of chuckle out of this, I think. So we had gone over the night of my birthday, just, we had been going over each evening just to make sure that, he was straightened up and, clean him up and stuff like that. And we checked, and he had a fever, and he had, he was having a hard time swallowing. So we got those sponges, would moisten his mouth and stuff like that. And, his fever was up a little bit, and they were going to get a Tylenol. I looked at my wife and I said, He's not going to swallow it. You know, I mean, you can't swallow a Tylenol. And I said, let me just run to the store and I'll get a Tylenol suppository. You know, so I found children's Tylenol suppositories. You need a script for adult ones. So I gave him 2 children's suppositories, Tylenol suppositories, and it helped his fever. Within like an hour, his fever was down. And after he had passed away, Carol, my mother-in-law, comes walking over to me and she said, you know, Brian, she said, when you run across Joe in eternity, she said, he's going to take one look at you. And before he says, you know, it's good to see you and all that, he's probably going to say, what the crap? You didn't have to go and do all that stuff right before I die.
Oh, man.
Yeah, man.
And I was just like, Carol, he probably is. He's probably going to walk right up and give me a crack at the side of the head and be like, hey, buddy, I was on my way out. You didn't have to do that.
You know, I always knew you were the roll up the sleeves kind of guy, but this takes it to a whole nother dimension there, Brian.
Yeah. We were doing anything to help that guy.
Yep.
So, but I don't know. For the bees, you know, on to what we're actually here for. You know, the last week before everything kind of, you know, took my attention, there was such a strong odor coming out of the hives and so much activity. It was just ridiculous. So I have no idea where they're getting any nectar, but they are. They're working something. So I put up a little short of just the activity, and it was just insane, the amount of activity there. I mean, it looked like a super highway. But now, yesterday and today, and I think tomorrow, we've got some rain. So it pretty much soaked everything. So I'm thinking within the next week going to be pulling supers and just evaluating some things, and digging in. But I just haven't filmed anything in the last week. So, but I'll have stuff coming up. But I think they'll be okay. I mean, I guess once I dig into them, I'll be able to assess what they all look like. But activity-wise, like yesterday, I had stopped by and what the heck my mind is so fried. I stopped over because I had to put corn in the feeders for the deer. And I took one peek at the hives. I walked out of the building and was just watching how they were, just, you know, with the rain. And literally every single hive had a decent amount of bees on the front of them. There was one that had so many bees because it was raining, they couldn't forage. The entire deep, you couldn't even see the front of the wood. It's just layered, slathered in bees. So population-wise, I think there's a decent number of bees in those colonies, but I'll find out. I mean, it's on my radar, but it's not on my radar, you know.
So, yeah, well, you've got family always comes first, and so
yeah,
you know, you had them set up. They'll be okay for a couple of weeks till you kind of climb out of this thing. But
yeah, they will. And next week, we've already, you know, for my wife, we've already got everything set up. There's a dedicated melanoma clinic that's in Cleveland, and it's actually for the healthcare system that I've been training Epic on. So we've already got appointments and everything all set up for that, and you know, they've got all reports and everything like that. So I think everything will be okay. It's just it's just
been tough.
A lot at one time, you know, in a 3 or 4 day time frame. It's just pow, take this, take that. So
no doubt.
Here's another shot.
Yep.
So that's what's going on in Northeast Ohio.
Greg, what you got going on up there in Hopewell, Ohio? By the way, I like that hat. I don't know where'd you get that hat from.
Look at this thing.
There's very few of those hats floating around. I think there's a total of 50.
Look at this thing.
Entire world.
Alabama Friendly Beekeepers, one of the best Facebook groups ever. Brian, one of the best Facebook groups ever.
It's pretty small, but it's It's pretty good. We need to get more activity on there, but yeah, it's a good pattern after Texas friendly beekeepers, which is much bigger and better. But we're kind of trying to carry that trend on here in Alabama and
Yeah.
other folks that want to be a part of it. So, Greg, talk to us about your spot, your little neck of the woods up there.
Ohio is, I tell you, it's been so dry. The goldenrod starts blooming. We had one little rain before some of the goldenrod started blooming, and I'm just thinking, oh man, are we going to hit? Are we going to hit? Are we going to hit? And it never really started. It got some really, some light aromas, coming from the yards. One yard a little bit, some of the other yards not. And then it started to pick up and we started to smell the goldenrod, kind of that butterscotchy deal. Everyone knows what that smells like. And then it was there for a day or two, and then we weren't picking up on the smells, and then we got a rain, and it kind of reminded me of this. And I don't know how it pertains to everything other than in those moments where you're looking at this fall forage and you're thinking, Lord, I hope this hits, give us some rain. I hope that these nectaries produce and these plants produce and the bees are able to kind of pack things in. We said, I don't know. Let's go ahead and just put some feed on the colonies that need it just in case. Well, that 1 week went by, and then 2 weeks went by, and then 3 weeks went by, and we've got a gallon of feed on a lot of these colonies every single week. Well, the rain started to come. This last couple of days, we've been getting rain, and it reminds me something that an old preacher said from the pulpit. And he said this. He said, rarely is God early, but he's never late. And so now with these little bit of rains that are coming in these last moments, now the yards are starting to really smell like goldenrod, like that intoxicating, overwhelming smell where you're just stop and take notice. I wish I better understood the nectaries of goldenrod, because by and large, a lot of the information out there suggests that the moisture and the preceding months dictates how well the flow will be based on overall ground moisture, like deeper rooted ground moisture. It wasn't until some of these recent rains before it really started to have some of that goldenrod. So we've been busy feeding the light colonies. We're on an oxalic acid vapor every 3 days in all of the yards, and it is a ton of work. I like it because it's soft on the bees, but it is just an enormous amount of work. But that Instant Vap Turbo is really helping. Jake is now, I think, so fluent with the turbo. He says, Dad, I need 2. If I had 2, I can manage that. And that boy he's booking. That's the turbo boogie in the bee yard. He's able to keep up that quick. If you've never used 2 instant vaps at once, it's keeping up with 2 just regular compacts will keep you moving. He's got out there with a turbo in one hand, a compact in the other, and you can start to very quickly notice the differences in speeds where the turbo is doing 2 colonies for every one of the compacts. So now the compact is the slow poke, and that thing was fast. So that's what we're up to right now. Is we've got some colonies that are on frame feeders that really, really needed the feed. We've got some colonies that are on bucket feeders to just kind of stimulate some brood rearing. They're drawing wax right now, thank God. And we've got OA treatments going down on everybody. And we've got we're getting ready to put it'll probably be either tomorrow or Friday. We're going to go through and give everybody 1 round of strong microbials. So right now we're just focused on health, knocking mites back, making sure the bees are built up with feed, and then giving them some probiotics. So it's a lot of work right now. It feels like it is just nonstop. But that's what we're doing. We've got some of our own queens that we've got banked. So as we watch our colonies go through and get a little later in the year, should we go into a queenless situation, or we see an under performing queen and we have queens on hand to kind of replace. So hopefully we'll be in a pretty good spot this year. I'm not where I wanted to be, but I'm thankful for where we're at, and we'll just kind of keep chugging along. But on the bee front, that's what we're doing. If that wasn't enough, there's everything else that we're prepping for. A lot of fun, exciting news, especially for the stream team later on this year, or the first of next year, rather. So that's kind of where we're at with our bees right now. Bruce, what about you in Dothan, Alabama? I know you were, last time we chatted, you were getting ready to kind of get back into some colonies and do some check-ins. Where are you at with your bees right now?
Well, 2 weeks ago, I went really through all of them, and I pulled all the Roxanne strips, did some testing, and well, I guess a week and a half ago now. And I used Roxanne in March of last year, and then again when we pulled Honey Supers off, and the numbers were not zero initially after my first check, after the honey came off, but they weren't real bad either. So I applied it again, and we had some mites. I wasn't super excited about the results. A lot of them are fine. That's how it seems to always be. But I had some numbers that are creeping up higher than what I want, quite a bit higher than I want. And so I was up at the Alabama Bee Association conference this past weekend in Clanton, Alabama. Met a lot of cool people. Probably some folks here in the chat were there, and had a good time up there. But I bought 4 packs of the Mike's, the oxalic acid. What's it called from Mike's
Easy
Bees? Easy Ox from Mike's Bees. I bought 4 packs of that, 400-gram packs. I also have I've got 4 Larabies Instant Vaps. The original one, I've got a what's the smaller compact, and then I have the new turbo. I do have a light, but that one's, it's a little bit slower, so I probably won't use it. It's a brand new one. We may actually give that one away one of these days. I give it away again, but I'm going to get out and just start hitting them hard, hitting them with OAV, high dose, just get it and try and get them knocked down the best I can. Yeah, that's not a good picture, but that was me at the conference. Shannon Reese took that of me. It looks like I don't know what it looks like. It looks like I'm deformed right there or something, but
that looks like is that a photo of Bruce watching the stream team on his phone while he's at a conference? Probably. It's probably what it was.
I don't know.
They were giving away. They were doing a raffle after dinner, and I was just like, anyway, I'm not even sure what I was doing there. But Shannon had to take that picture, snap it, and send it to Brian. Blackmail me there. But it was fun. We had a good time up there. So this week, my goal is to, and I actually fed them. I fed the bees. I open fed them. I filled up all the buckets on your queens, Greg, that need. Now the ones in Slocum were full. Like, they were heavy.
Nice.
I just didn't think I needed to feed them. But the buckets, I think at Applin, one of them didn't really need it. The other one did. But I put food in the open feeders at all locations, all my bees, this past week, and I went out to Applin Farms the day before I went to the conference, and they had pretty much gobbled that food up. And so it has been super dry here. Eric, Spirit of Toad, in here has been talking about we had one little rain, I think, it's been like 5 or 6 weeks, I think, since we've had significant rain. We had one pretty good rain in there somewhere one time. It has been so dry. It's just everything, we had a wonderful summer. Everything, it was raining like every 3 days or something, or an afternoon rain, a nice soaking rain, and then it would dry up and be perfect. But it has just rained. It's just been so dry. Grass is crunching. And I'm going to go out. My goal this weekend, I'm probably going to try to put some more feed out for them and just trying to catch up. I was a little disappointed with the Mite results. I've got to get those knocked back. I'm kind of, we had Randy Oliver and Bob Benny spoke at the conference this weekend. And, Randy talks a lot about feeding, and I learned a lot, maybe that I didn't know before about feeding bees and when to feed them and how to feed them. And, I think in the past, my feeding strategy has been more just to keep them alive. And now I need to really, that's always been my biggest weakness, because it's hard for me to get out there and do that. It's hard to mix it up, hard to get it out to the bees. And just with my time limitations, I have a hard time keeping them fed. It's been more of a survival thing in the past, to be honest. I'm not the best example of how to keep your bees fed. But, usually I get some of them through winter and we do okay. So hopefully I can get back on top of it and get the mites knocked back and get the bees fed. And the bees have looked pretty good all year, honestly. Last time I was in, they looked pretty good, but there are some that are pretty weak as well. So we'll see what happens. But that's kind of where I'm at. As far as the YouTube front goes, I do have some footage from the past that I've been kind of trying to get some videos out. I do plan to kind of step back a little bit for a little while and just kind of refocus and kind of plan some things a little bit, try and clean the channel up a little bit and get some things organized a little better. There may be an occasional video coming out, but it's not going to be weekly for a while probably here. I've got a couple more to get out, but after that, it may slow down for a little while. And I hope to kind of get a plan together to make it, get more consistent and a little bit more value, hopefully add a little value to the channel and some of the things I'm doing. So that's where I'm at with the bees. That's where I'm at with the YouTube thing. And I do feel that annual burnout. I've been having some of that going on. I've been feeling tired and just kind of a little bit burned out, but there's some things that have to be done, and hope to get out there and get those things done. But that's where we are down here. And what we just talked about kind of leads right into the topic for tonight, considerations leading and entering into fall. This is probably the hardest time of the year for me as we come into fall, because right now, actually starting about a month ago, probably, or earlier, is when we're starting to have those winter bees being prepped and produced for our colonies. And, down here, we have a little bit of flexibility, I think, in the South, because we never completely breed all the way down. We always have a few warm days here or there. So the bees never really go completely into that winter state here where they just cluster and they don't uncluster for 3 months. That never happens here. And so it's a little bit more difficult, a little more tricky in some ways, but it's also a little more forgiving because we have brood being made throughout the year pretty much here. So we never have to. It's important, I think, to have winter bees made, but it's not as critical as it is probably for you guys up north. Mm-hmm. And so I guess, I think it'd be kind of good to talk a little bit about what kind of preparations, for those who may be new and for those of us who aren't new beekeepers on the chat tonight, maybe discuss some beekeeping considerations as we enter fall. I think, are we officially in fall now? Isn't September 20th or something? Isn't the first day of fall? Or is it October? It is September, right?
22nd, I think.
So we are officially in fall, barely at the beginning of it. So as we enter fall, what are some things, Brian, that you think are critical as we go into fall in preparation for winter?
I mean, up here, you've got to look, you can't, if you're starting right now, you're late. You've got to start, oh my gosh. I mean, I'm looking in July as far as prepping them. It's just the weight. Make sure they're clean as far as your mites. Make sure they're queen right. That always helps. But the weight on the colonies, that's just so critical. I mean, if they have no weight, they're dead. Because you can't up here. You're limited. Like down your way, if they don't have a lot of weight on them, you can still put syrup on them because you don't have those extended freezing nights like up here. Up here, if you have colonies that are exceptionally light, hardly no weight on them, they're just doomed. Because I mean, like last year, we were still having freezing nights. Oh my gosh. I mean, it stretched to the beginning of April, I think it was, something like that. It was our winter last year was insanely long. So if you've got a colony that's light this time of the year and you don't make sure their weight is up, they're not going to make it, probably to January, February. They'll be dead before that. So, I mean, I always trying to use winter sugar bricks or sugar boards. No, DC, it's fondant, buddy. So that's my thing. I mean, I always, I work throughout the whole year though, as far as my winter prep, because when I'm doing the story and a half, so I have a deep and a medium, the medium that is just above my deep, that very first medium, I never harvest it. So that medium gets worked all year. And then I will at times, I'll cycle frames out. If they're really good frames, I'll just cycle them out and save them. So then I can kind of, this time of the year, I like to equalize with what I've stored and just make sure things are set right. Now, I had a couple strong colonies that instead of one super, after I pulled all my supers, I left 2 on them for when I was feeding them. And my thought was, well, I'm going to let those strong colonies work frames for me, store stuff for the winter. And then when it gets this time of the year and I need to equalize, I'll just go through and assess all the colonies. And when I break everything down to that story and a half, the deep medium, the couple that had the extra super, those capped out frames will just get distributed, and equalized throughout the yard. But I like mine. I mean, I just like them. They got to have weight on them, but like I said, I'm working all year on it.
Yeah.
So if
Greg,
you now, like I said, you're hurting.
thoughts, Greg?
I think you got to pay attention to mites, and you can't just say I'm going to wait till the weather cools to make a move. I think you got to get you got to. I know we've said this a lot, but you've got to know the configuration that you need to be in for the winter time. You've got to know what that looks like, because that is the goal that you are moving towards. And if you're not quite there yet, you need to do some things to push that brood nest and push that queen and that colony closer to that. If you're a little bit closer to that and you've got plenty of bees in the boxes, and like, let's say, Brian mentioned a story and a half. So whether you're a story and a half doubles or a single, whatever, that you can overwinter in, you got to make sure that you're getting close to getting there. What's going on here is I've got colonies that I need to build into deeps. If I would have just let them be story and a half, they would have already been there. But I'm trying to get them into double deeps. And that's for a host of different reasons. That's thinking ahead for the spring on what my purpose is for those colonies. And so I'm trying to get them into double deeps. And then to do that, however, they were fat singles. We brought brood up into the second box. We had some fresh frames out there. We put frame feeders in there to gorge feed. We put bucket feeders on to help get the frames kind of drawn out. So what I'm saying is I know what my target size is, and I'm still working towards that. Knowing that also gives you the mindset of what you need to be careful with. What I've got to be careful with is if I need to grow my brood chamber and I need to grow my bees, it's fair to say that we need the queen laying, and she needs to continue ramping up and continuing to brood. Well, what are things that are going to put the bricks on, or put the brakes on that? Well, if there's no incoming feed at all, if there's no pollen, no nectar, she's going to stop laying, and that colony isn't going to get to size. That's number one. Number two, if the colony is very sick and already has a high viral load, they're not going to be able to do it. And then the third thing is, and this is where this gets very tricky, if we have mite treatments on that pin the queen back and prevent her from laying, we're going to be clean and free of mites, but is the colony to the size that they need to be? So right now you're in this risk reward management part of the year where you've got mite washes, hopefully. And if you're in the 2 to 4% ratio, you're kind of in this grace period where you can get by with oxalic acid vapor to keep knocking and pulling these mites down and pulling the mite numbers down some without them growing. What that does is lets the queen keep chugging along and moving forward with feed on top of the colony, specifically in a bucket feeder. She's going to stay stimulated. She's going to keep going. And then at some point, I want to do a heavier knockback on the mites using something like Formic, but that has to happen in a window where I don't need the queen still brooding up and it's cool enough. So I know all that sounds complicated, and it is. These are things that we've got to think about when we're trying to get the most out of these colonies. And so that's kind of where we're at right now, Bruce. Those are things that I think are really important to consider. Is what is your target size for winter? How close are you to that? And what can you be doing to help grow into that size? Being mindful all the while of things that you could be doing that could be setting yourself back. So that's kind of where we're thinking. And Bruce, when you mentioned that you're with Roxanne not being really impressed, I tell you, I've gotten a lot of feedback from folks that have sent me photos of their mite washes after 40 some days, 44 days, 45 days after Roxanne has been on. And they've got 38, 40, 50 mites. The mites are actually growing from the 20s. They're doubling in size over the course of time with Viroxan on. And I'm just thinking, man alive, that is not good. When you look at the price per unit to treat a colony, you're as much as Formic per colony, and it's not doing nearly the same amount of job. And you got to be careful with those Viroxan strips too, because if you place them in between the frames, a lot of folks see that the bees will make these caverns around them, or they'll abandon brood in those areas. If you just lay them on top in between doubles, a lot of time that queen, she doesn't want to move up through there. The same thing if you want to put extended release pads on top of right in between two boxes, she doesn't want to move up. So either way, the Viroxan or extended releases could set you back with brood. To me, it's heartbreaking for folks who are spending that kind of money on a product that doesn't seem to have the results that they need. That's just one more thing to be mindful of. You cannot put all your eggs in one basket. You can't just put a treatment on and say, well, we'll see you in pumpkin spice season and hope everything is okay. We got to stay on top of it, keep an eye. What about you, Bruce? What are some things, that you're doing in Alabama that might be different than what we're doing in a colder climate to ready yourself for winter?
Well, I'm just, once again, like I typically get every time this time of year, I'm a little bit behind, primarily because I haven't fed as much as I need to. We have been a little bit, it is more forgiving here. We do have, if you're near cotton and the cotton is producing in a way that the bees can take from it. Some cotton works well, some doesn't. I'm not sure if it's the variety of cotton, if it's the soil, it may be a combination. But some of my BRs look better than others. And so, but once again, my focus right now is trying to get them fed, and I'm going to get all these mites back. I'm going to hit them like every week as long as I have to until the numbers drop. Probably 4 to 5 to even 6 weeks in a row. I'm going to try to hit them with the OAV and just hammer them down. And that has worked for me in the past. I know people say that if you got brood and that it won't knock the mites back, but I've had it work if you hit them many, many times. You can't just, some people say every 3 to 4 days. I can't physically do that. Cameron Jack I think when we interviewed him and talked to him, and I went to his course a couple of years ago at the expo, mentioned that what they found at the University of Florida is that 4 weeks at 5 to 7 days apart is how they had the best results with using OAV. And so I'm just going to hit them hard with it. I'm going to go 4 grams, maybe even 4 grams per box, and just hit them hard and get that done. With regards to the Viroxan strips, I do think it's okay to kind of maintain a little bit. Bob Benny actually recently, he's been in the process of doing a study, which he talked about that at the conference this weekend. And he has thousands of colonies. They tested every single colony in his operation. They did 3 different treatments. They did Viroxan strips. They did Varroa destructor strips, which are out of Canada. They look exactly like Viroxan strips, but apparently they're impregnated with more oxalic acid than the Viroxan strips are. And then they also did the pads, the delayed release pads, Randy Oliver style, I believe. And so I think the best results, Greg, kind of with what you're saying, I think, and he's going to, I'm not trying to jump ahead of his study, but from what it looks like, and he's going to come out with the numbers soon. There is a reason. He recently did a video. I think his last video, he talked about why he has not given the results of the overall summary of all the results. But there is a reason for that. But it sounds to me like the pads were the best. The Varroa destructor was really good as well. And then the Viroxan was mediocre. He said it's a pretty good let's maintain type of a treatment, but it doesn't really knock them back. And he also mentioned he did do with the Viroxan and the Varroa destructor strips. He did some where he hung it down between the frames. He did some over the top, and tried both methods. And both were effective, but between the frames was better. With regards to the cavities around the Viroxan strips, they do that some. What I found is if you hang them straight down, if there's a way to hang them straight down, they don't tend to do that as much. But what happens is when you lay them over the frame, they kind of bow out a little bit, and the frame that they're bowing out into, they will kind of clean that out behind that strip. But it doesn't, as many bees I got in my colonies, it just doesn't bother. Some people it really bothers. It doesn't bother me that much. I know there's some brood there and some resources that get wasted, some little bit of space in there. But when you got double deeps and they're packed full of bees and they got brood everywhere, to me it's just not that big a deal. And I think when you pull the strips out, they just rebuild around it. It's not a permanent thing, and so that doesn't bother me. Some people really get upset about that, but it doesn't bother me that much. It's just my personal opinion, so it's not that big a deal. But I do believe, yeah, Hope Sadler said it here. He said he turned his research over to Georgia to compile. And so the University of Georgia is involved with the study because it was such a good study. I mean, that's a huge sample size when you look at Bob's operation. It's really, really valuable information there. And so, I hesitate to go into my colonies right now and hit them with Apagard. It's really super hot, which I could do a half dose. I did that last year. But I'm just afraid I'm a little behind on the feeding. This drought really has me concerned as well. It's been so dry that, we don't have a lot coming in. And so I hate to just hammer them with something heavy duty like that. I think my best option is just to hit them. I'm going to go for several weeks with OAV and just see if it knocks the mites back. And if not, by then it should be cool enough that I might be able to try Formic or try Rock. I'm just trying to figure it out. I really kind of got behind again. We had some family things happen that we had to do in August, some traveling we did there, and just I kind of got behind. And a couple weekends I felt kind of bad. I had some kind of a bug or something. I couldn't get out there very long. I couldn't spend as much time in the bee yard as I wanted to, and so I just got a little bit behind on things. And so now, once again, every year I think I'm going to get ahead of the game, and I always have to play catch up. That's the price I pay, I guess, for working full time and trying to run 140, 150 colonies. I'm just not as efficient as I've got a friend that runs 400 or 500 colonies, Davis McLaughlin, here in town, and he's a banker. He works full time. He has young kids. He's got a family, and they're playing sports. And I don't know how he does it, but he stays on top of them and has a lot of healthy colonies. But I just can't. I can't figure out how to do that. And so that's kind of where I'm at. But the goal down here is, once again, it's just like everywhere else, to get your bees strong, make sure they have weight on the colonies, make sure the mites are under control, and have them healthy going into winter. Ideally, as well, you want to have healthy queens, young queens that are productive, that can go into next spring, come out going gangbusters into the spring. But it's a little tough to get queens now, so it might be a difficult thing. I will say, this is going to sound totally crazy to a lot of people in the chat tonight if you don't live around here, but my buddy Tyler Walker is a commercial beekeeper just a little ways away from here, and he did a class at the at our bee conference this past weekend here in Alabama, and he talks about splitting. And one of his favorite times to split with virgin queens is right now, September, October. Getting a little bit later, he splits with mated queens. He does have some resources for that, I guess, even later in the year. But really, here with the temperatures, what happens is when the fall kicks in, they start making drones again. And he does a lot of splits with virgin queens, or not virgin queens, but queen cells. It's crazy. I think I have never really done that this time of year, but he does it. He makes a lot of increases right now, and but it is more tricky, obviously, this time of year than it is in the spring. And then he just, I think, mid-October, he uses just nothing but mated queens. When the goldenrod slows down, he starts putting mated queens in for a few more rounds of splits, and then he's done. Eric in here, Spirited Toad, he just lives, for those who don't know, Eric lives just within like 45 minutes from me here, 45 minutes to an hour. Yes, that's right, DC, here in the South. But yeah, Eric says he still has drones and he can make queens, but they start to ramp back up when the goldenrod kicks in. It's kind of crazy how they do that. But, Eric said the goldenrod is just starting to turn yellow here, and that's true. We're just starting to have the goldenrod turn yellow here. I know you guys have had it now for several weeks, like for a month. You guys have been dealing with goldenrod. We are just starting to have ours turn yellow here, but it's been so dry. I don't know. I don't know what kind of the cotton's pretty much done. Everything's pretty much done. But the goldenrod, the fall flowers are just coming out now. I don't know if they get anything off of ragweed, but ragweed's been blooming now for a while. We got the cotton, I think or not the cotton, but the goldenrod starting to bloom. The asters, I think, are probably blooming. There's, some flowers are starting to pop around here a little bit. So, we'll see what happens. But that's kind of where we're at here with my preparation. Really, my preparation most of the year is just try to hold on, just try to keep up with the bees and hold on and hopefully stay ahead of some problems. I do plan, once again, like I did last year, to use the Hive Alive fondant on all my colonies, at least a couple of rounds, probably, if not 3. That does get pricey, but man, last year my bees came out of winter looking better than they ever had. And I attribute it to a pretty good mite knockdown in the fall when I had a problem last year as well. And then trying to maintain through the winter with the mites. And then I really attribute a lot of it to the fondant I used in the wintertime. Greg, you saw what they looked like on February 1st when we went through them. Last year they looked phenomenal, and I fed them. I fed them all 2 rounds, and then maybe as needed the third round, or I may have gone all of them 3 rounds, and then as needed a fourth round. But I think it was just 2.5, 2 rounds to 3 rounds. And once again, it was a pretty big paycheck. That's a lot of money to pay Hive Alive, but I really think it just takes a lot of stress out of the equation. Down here, you don't have to say, okay, can I feed them liquid now? Can I feed them liquid? You just put that fondant on there, and the strong ones eat it, the weak ones eat it, and it just kind of keeps them happy throughout the winter. And that's kind of my strategy. Down here, it's worked really well for me. Last year's the first year I went all in on that because it's just so pricey, but it was well worth it in my opinion. So that's what's going on down here. If anybody has any questions or concerns or any comments, just if you want us to talk about it, if you could put it in all caps down below, we'll be glad to answer it. Starting here in a little while, we're going to start answering a few questions. Greg, do you want to talk about, you wanted to share some information tonight? You had some about a conference coming up.
Bruce, there's a bunch of, I know you just spoke at the Alabama conference, and it's the time of year where there's a lot of speaking engagements, I think, for a lot of folks. I got a couple little things I just want to share here. The first one being this weekend, this Saturday, I'll be along with Fred Dunn. We'll be speaking at a free event in Woodsfield, Ohio, this Saturday, September the 27th, from 9 to 4 o'clock. It's going to be a great time. This neck of the woods is just such a great group of folks. So if you were just looking for a good time, this coming Saturday the 27th, Fred Dunn and I will be headlining that event, sharing some great tips and tricks for this time of year in person. We'll also be there in person as vendors. We'll have the camera up as well. So if you've got something you'd like to share with us, stop by and see us. We're going to have some great deals on some products there as well to help keep your bees healthy and to help make sure that they're where you need them to be for the wintertime. So Bruce, that is going on. But I also talked with the folks at the Midwest Honeybee Expo, and what a great time that is going to be. I got a couple flyers, Bruce, for you if you could pop those up there. But this February 6th and 7th at the Alliant Energy Center Exhibition Hall in Madison, Wisconsin, your favorite Bee Chat folks will be there live and in person. It's going to be a great time. A lot of great folks are going to be there as well. It's going to be a lot of fun, and I hope folks can make it up there. I think what's great about what they're doing is they're bringing a lot of great speakers to the Midwest. You just look through the list here. You've got some guy named Kamen. You got David Burns, who is the not as good looking Burns, but he's still reputable, of course. Got Zach Lamas, Nathalie B, Becky Masherman, James Lee, if I can read all those, David Peck, Ryan and Sarah Stern, Christy Winslow, Isabel Wright, Mr. Korhan himself from Apame will be there, Rance Bennett, James Hillemeyer, and your favorite, the Stream Team Beekeeping Chat. That's right. All three of us, Bruce, Brian, and myself, we'll all be there. It's going to be a lot of fun. The Stream Team Beekeeping Chat, this is going to be the very first time this has ever happened. So if you can make it to the Midwest Honeybee Expo, come join the Stream Team Beekeeping Chat live in front of an audience at the Midwest Honeybee Expo, the big debut for the Stream Team. It's going to be a lot of fun. We're going to do what we do here, but in front of an entire audience. I think they're expecting somewhere between 600 to 800 people. It's going to be awesome. You don't want to miss it. There's going to be a lot of great giveaways. It's going to be a lot of fun. We'll drop some links below, but this February 6th and 7th the Midwest Honeybee Expo. It's going to be a lot of fun. You don't want to miss it. So I'm excited about those things coming up, Bruce. There's several more events and conferences that we'll be speaking at. If you want to see where we're going to be speaking next, you can check out our website, nature'simagefarm.com. Click the events. But you have to give me a little bit of time. Susan just made me aware. She said, you know, all your events are like ancient. And I said, what are you talking about? She goes, all your speaking events, everywhere that you've been in the last year, like it's not even posted. So apparently I'm not doing a good job keeping that updated. I'm going to make that happen so folks can follow along where I'll be speaking and also where the stream team will be at. So it's going to be a lot of fun. It's one thing to do this like this, guys, where we're on the same screen with our folks here in the comments. It's going to be a lot of fun to be in an entire room of 600 to 800 people doing what we do. Really looking forward to that. It's going to be awesome.
Yeah, it'll be a lot of fun. Yeah, I'm looking forward to that too. It was a lot of fun this past weekend. I've never really done a class at a beekeeping conference before. I've taught a lot of lessons. I've done a lot of speaking in the past at church and so forth. I'm not at all usually nervous getting in front of people, but to actually talk a little bit at a bee conference, it was kind of fun and had some good interaction. And we just talked a little bit about kind of some simple tips and tricks for beekeeping videos, filming beekeeping videos. And we had probably 20 to 30 people in each class. It was small, but it was kind of small, but it was a lot of fun. We had I don't know how many people we had at the conference. It was a pretty good turnout. Not near as big as this one's going to be, but it was fun to have those. It was in individual classrooms and we had a good time with it. So anyway, I got my feet wet a little bit this past weekend. I think it's going to be a lot of fun and hopefully as many people as can come to that. We've had a couple of questions come through. Let me see. And you guys want to dive into some of those? Want to go ahead and do that?
Do it.
We got. All right, Brian, if you can catch any more questions that come through, I'm going to go ahead and hop into the starred section here and we'll see what we got. First of all, Brian, I appreciate this super chat. It really does help. It means a lot. Makes it all worthwhile. Folks don't realize how much kind of work goes in that. If you have a YouTube channel, you do. If you got bees, it's a lot of hard work, but it does take a lot of time and effort to produce a YouTube channel. And we just appreciate that. Thanks, Brian, so much for that. Let's see what we got here. We got a question from Red Creek Honey. Greg, can we get bulk Pro Suite? I have a tote looking for 150 gallons. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Just let us know. We sell a lot of Pro Suite, and we usually get that delivered by a tanker. We also offer a delivery service if you're looking for a tote or several, and you're in the state of Ohio or surrounding states. We can also arrange delivery to you. You're welcome to come pick it up too. So Red Creek Honey, just what I would do is shoot us a message, nature'simagefarm.com, hit the contact us, shoot us a message there. And we can certainly get you bulk pricing on Pro Suite. It'll actually already have Hive Alive mixed in it as well. So top-notch feed there. Happy to do that for sure.
Does it come with the Hive Alive mixed in it, or do you add that to it?
We do. It's something that we do.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Greg, I appreciate it, man. Brothers Keeper, # be the lighthouse. Thanks so much. I appreciate that. All right. We got a question here from Bees in the Abyss, Kevin. First year, deep is packed with resources. Super that is on, never got drawn comb this year. Should I harvest a frame or two to free up space for the egg laying? Read through that again. It's got a deep packed with resources and the super never got drawn out. Should he harvest a frame to free up space for egg laying? I'm assuming he means in the bottom box since the top box never got drawn out. What do you think, Greg? This time of the year, would you take a frame out to allow egg laying, or would you? I guess it depends on how much honey is in that deep box. If it's totally full of honey and she's getting honey bound, I would definitely say so. But if she's got 2 or 3 frames that are or even 4 frames that have got plenty of brood on them, I might just leave them alone. I don't know. What do you think, Greg?
I'd say I would base that on the population in the colony. What our bees are going to do here, and they've done it for the last 3 years in a row, and it's something you kind of have to learn the nature of your bees in your area, is the woolly caterpillar, again, is showing that it's going to be another drawn out fall. It's going to be a very mild winter. What that means is, we might have some ice, but we're going to have some warm weather. How that typically plays out for us in the fall is we have an extended long warm and dry fall. So what we typically see is it might look like at first that the brood nest is becoming nectar bound. What I have seen is if you pull back on that and you don't let them store it everywhere, what our bees typically do is if they get a little bit crazy with the nectar in the brood area, what we usually see is within a week or two, once the flow shuts off, they eat themselves back out of the brood nest. The weather stays warm, and then they brood back up again. We kind of get this resurgence, this one or two more late rounds of brood going into November sometimes. And they're able to do that because they had so much honey packed in the colony to do it. So I wouldn't be necessarily afraid if things are looking kind of jammed. If you got a good colony, if they're not moving up into another box to store it, there's not much you can do. But if you did want to pull 1 or 2 frames out from the outside of the box for yourself and spin it and then put it back, I think you could do that, and that would help give them a place to continue to store the honey. The worst possible scenario is if you pull 1 or 2 frames out of a 10-frame box that is capped honey and you spin it for yourself and you put those frames back in there. Worst case scenario is if they do what I just said and they start eating themselves out of the brood nest and they get a little bit thin on food, worst case scenario, you put a 2 or 3 to 1 on them and let them backfill with that. And you might be saying, well, why would I do that if I could just leave the honey in there? Well, let's do the math. Basic price on honey. After you pay for your bottle, if you're charging $12 a pound, let's say you clear $10 a pound for the honey, you can feed the bees with the high quality feed for a lot less than that and still give them some good nutrition going into the wintertime. So if it's a business decision, I would pull the honey if you're worried about it, spin it out, see what they do, and if you need to, backfill it with the heavy feed a little bit later in the year.
He said there were 7 frames of honey and nectar. So he probably, if it's a 10-frame box, he probably needs to pull a couple of frames out, I would think. And when you put those frames back in, Greg, my thoughts are you want to see how far, the expanse of the brood, and then I would put them back in. I'd move the frames out that were on I'd take the outside frames of honey, move the cap to the outside, and I'd put them right on the outside of where that brood is what I would do. That way the queen can find them and lay in there, eat more easily. If they need to fill it up again, they will. I know you guys, a lot of your bees up there tend to brood way back in the wintertime, and so it might not be a bad thing for them to have that honey in there. But anyway, that's a great first year beekeeper. That's a great question. Brian, do you have any further comments on that, or are you kind of in agreement with that?
What he said.
Okay, good. All right. Great question, though. That was really a good question because that's something probably a lot of people are running into, especially newer beekeepers that may have had the exact same situation. So that's a great question. Derek Miller says, do I need to worry about bees plugging out the hive with honey? They are singles in North Alabama and are very heavy.
That's a Bruce question.
Well, it might be a Bruce question. North Alabama is completely different than South Alabama. From what I'm finding out, it's very, very different up there. North Alabama is probably it's probably a little more like what Bob Benny runs into, except Bob's even up in the mountains a little differently. So if there's anybody from North Alabama in here, don't feel free to chime in. But I would say I don't think this time of the year. I mean, I think you guys probably have goldenrod blooming up there now. I'm not sure what the rain has been like up there. I tend not to want to. Just my opinion is I just kind of let them keep what they have. It depends on how many boxes you have, Derek. If it's a double deep, I wouldn't worry about it at all. If it's a single deep, then maybe like what the last question was, might be something to consider. You may want to pull if it's totally full of honey. If they're very heavy, you may want to pull a few frames out. Another consideration is hive beetle pressure. If you got a lot of hive beetle pressure and the population's down, you might want to get a little bit of honey out of there. But I really think that we do have, like I said, we got some goldenrod, some fall stuff coming in, but it's not going to be long before they might utilize that food. So I just got to see what the size of the brood nest is. If you got a good solid brood nest in there, then I would probably just leave them alone. About a couple of months ago, my colonies here were just, when we pulled the honey, I went in them, shortly after, started going through them and really looking at them. And man, we had my double deeps that had that beautiful, maybe 6 frames of brood in the bottom, 5, 6 frames, just solid, nice frames of brood in the bottom. Middle 2 or 3 frames in the top had some brood in them. And then the food dome that you had around it, front to back and side to side, it was like a perfect hive. A lot of my colonies look just like that, and I was really excited about it. I did make quite a few splits and kind of messed that up a little bit. But if I've got a nice double deep or even a deep and a medium that has that nice dome in there where you got brood, quite a bit of brood in the bottom, and a little bit of brood in the next box up, and then the resources, pollen and honey surrounding that, I think you probably should leave them alone. So it kind of, I may pull a few frames out, kind of take a look at it and see what you're dealing with. You don't have to do it in a complete inspection, but even if you pull a couple frames out of the middle of the top box and you got brood up there, you may want to pull a couple out of the bottom and see too, but you may just have a perfect setup. They're going to be pretty heavy when they're like that. So you may just want to kind of see what you got and then determine that if you have like 1 frame of brood in the middle and a double deep that's packed with honey, you probably need to pull some of that honey out and get some frames of drawn comb down around where that queen is, give her a chance to build some brood up. That's just my suggestion. Any further thoughts on that, Greg? You got any thoughts on that?
Nope. I think you well said, Bruce.
Okay. Brian, how about you? Same thing? All right. We got a question here from Damon Holmes. Have any of you ever experimented with a homemade fondant like my Hive Alive results with a couple have? So it just ain't happening. I think what he's saying, let's see. Not sure what he's trying to say there, but maybe he's talking about the expense of the Hive Alive. I'm not sure, but so has anybody ever? I've never tried to make homemade fondant. Brian turned me on to the Hive Alive a few years ago. I know some people in the comments may have. I know there's a guy. I think there's a man down in Louisiana or Texas that makes some. I can't remember his name. I've seen him on some of their bee chats. Brian, do you know who that is? There's another guy that makes some fondant. I cannot think of who it is. He's been on some of the other bee chats that come on it in the evenings, but it's just so easy for me to buy the Hive Alive. Just cut that square piece out, fold it back, lay it on the bees and let them do their thing. A lot of people make their own thing when it comes to the oxalic acid treatments, the fondants, all the different things. I am just so strapped for time. I'm lucky to be able to get the prefabricated stuff on there. It's really difficult for me to make my own stuff lots of times. And so I have never used it. I've never tried a homemade Damon. If anyone in the comments has, maybe you could direct them to where to look for that, and maybe you could find a recipe for that.
I've made some in the past, and here's what happened for me. It's very hard to get the texture and the consistency right. You might get it to where it feels right at first, but as soon as you have some colony warmth on it, a lot of them want to turn into a gooey mess that always seems to find a way to encapsulate the queen and just completely goo her up. If you can find a mechanism to actually kind of hold the material and dispense it at the same time, that's where it becomes very tricky. If you think about it from a cost risk analysis, you have a beautiful double deep, for instance, that coming out of the wintertime, if you wanted to in the spring, when that thing builds up to, let's say, 18 or 20 frames of bees, if you wanted to, there's 3 splits very easily. If you're going to sell those splits for $200 a piece, you potentially have $600 in bees out of one colony after, of course, you make a couple queens and put in there, right? So if you start to put a value on what the asset is worth when it matures in the spring, for us, the fondant is a cheap insurance policy. It's going to cost you about $5 per 2-pound packet of it. Each colony here in Ohio goes through 2 or 3 of those. So for $10 to $15, we have a food insurance policy on there, and we're not going to worry about gooping up queens or just totally engulfing a colony in a sticky, syrupy, nasty mess. So I know 50 colonies, that is expensive. And believe me, I know that it is. But if you place a value on what you need those 50 colonies to do in the spring, what I can tell you is what we've seen with fondant, and the reason that we still use it, even with the number of colonies that we have, is this. When we put the fondant on, and we put it on around Thanksgiving, during those warm days in December and January, those bees are blowing right past the honey and going to the fondant, and they're chewing on the fondant first. What that allows us to do is when our maples first bloom in late February or early March, there's still honey left in the colony. Those bees rehydrate that honey, and that helps them brood up. And what we've seen, the combination of the bees, I think, being healthier because of the Hive Alive additive in the fondant, that's been in their system going through the wintertime. Combination of that and having honey on demand for nursing bees. What I've seen is the bees have a certain luster that I never had seen before, and they build up and brood in such a strong, steady way that for me it was a no-brainer. So yes, it's expensive. Yes, it's going to be $10 or $15 per colony to put the fondant on, but that is a lot less riskier than making your own and having it totally goop up and then lose even just one colony. Just something to consider.
Yeah, I agree. Brian, thoughts on the fondant?
I've never made homemade. I know there's plenty of recipes out there, but for me, it's the whole time thing. And Hive Alive, I've used it now for years. So I just figure if it ain't broke, don't fix it.
I agree. I will say that, I would love to just put fondant on all my colonies right now, but it is real hot here. It's not the best time to use it. The best time is when it's cooler temperatures. And it doesn't have to be cold, but 90, 95 degrees like we're still getting here. It's been so hot and dry here. It's been crazy. But so right now, I think liquid feed is the best for us right now. But it definitely, originally when I used the Hive Alive fondant, it was as an insurance policy. If I found a weak colony, I'd slap it on there and save some colonies that way. But last year I just put it on everything with tremendous results. As far as making it yourself, Greg made a lot of good points there. You just have to make sure it's the right texture, is done properly. If you do that, I know the Hive Alive also is the inverted sugar. I'm not sure what that means, but that also makes it easier for the bees to consume, I think. But all power to if you want to do that. I personally just don't. It's just to me, the time it takes, you say 50, it's just not happening. To me, with 100 plus, 120, 130 colonies, it's just, I just can't. I don't have the time to. I spend the money, and it is expensive. But then again, like Greg said, it's if you look at each hive as a unit, you can get great deal at the Hive Life on it. Maybe we spec Bee Expo. There you go. But if
Might
you
be
just
a little late then, but it would be helpful in February.
Yeah. Anyway, so that's a great question. We appreciate the questions coming in. Hopefully that helped. All right, Gary Stewart says, I know it is bad to use another treatment while using Viroxam, but since it's just OA, would it hurt to also blast a treat with vapor? I really honestly think that the Viroxam, I know it's an extended release, as are all those. This is my opinion. They would probably tell you no, but I don't think it would hurt to do that. Personally, it's a different delivery mechanism, in my opinion, Greg. Brian, correct me if I'm wrong, but when it's in the strips, the bees are walking across it, and that's kind of how it gets spread throughout the colony. Of course, with the vapor, it's blasting the colony, and I believe it kind of coats the bees with the oxalic acid vapor, and they clean each other off. And in that process, I think somehow it kills the mites. Greg, you may understand the science behind it better than I do.
I think you'd want to read the label on it. That's going to might give you some restrictions. Yes, it's oxalic acid, but you're talking about two completely different formats. And so is the question you have to ask yourself, is oxalic acid slow release? How much different is that than Formic? You start to get into the potency of the acid, the slightly different arrangement of the acid. But to me, they're too similar in the method of application that I'd be a little hesitant on having the vapor of the liquid oxalic acid in the colony being emitting, and then put those crystals that are surrounding and encapsulating things in the colony with the vapor. I don't think it would be as bad of a synergistic reaction as if it was oxalic acid and Apagard, or oxalic and Formic. But I would be the thing that I think really comes to mind too is if you think what the extended release oxalic is doing versus what the oxalic acid vapor is doing, like I'm not sure that vapor is even, I'm not sure that's it's really that helpful in that scenario, because oxalic acid is, kind of on a um, it's being exuded in the colony through that time period that the strips are in there. So what benefit or effect would vapor have really in that scenario that those extended pads or strips aren't already doing? So is it worth the extra effort? um, I'm not sure on that.
Yeah, I would be careful. I do know. Well, I think that you just have to be careful. I've done some things that haven't killed my bees, but I'm not sure that I should ever recommend that. Obviously, you're safe if you stay within the guidelines of the label. Um, that's the only advice we really can give. I personally don't know that it would be a problem. Maybe don't do as heavy as of a dose, but then again, if it's against the label, we can't recommend that. Um, Sorry about that. All right, let's move on to the next one, and just a kind of a comment here from Sam. He says, "Mr. Burns, I'm still treating my bees with OA." And Mr. Greg, as Mr. Bruce asked Mr. Bruce what he posted on the live stream last week. Last week, Greg, we had a Sam made a split we talked about on one of our previous live streams, and we showed a picture of that beautiful queen that he has out of that split he made. And so, congratulations, Sam, on that. Appreciate you being a supporter of the chat.
Nice.
Brian, you got any comments here? Anything you'd like to add?
No, I'm gonna probably jump off here in a second. I gotta get some things wrapped up around the home.
Okay.
So,
We appreciate you sneaking in tonight. We didn't really anticipate it because of all the things that have happened, but we're grateful you came in tonight, Brian, and we'll try to hold down the fort here while you get some rest and take care of the things you got to take care of, and hopefully things will kind of, get out of this valley here for you pretty quick, and you kind of start seeing the horizon a little bit better out there.
I don't think. I mean, I'm not even going to say it because I was going to say I don't think anything else could happen, but
Ooh, no, don't say that.
Yeah.
Don't say that. Yeah.
Not even saying it. So
Yeah, don't say that.
Yeah, I just wanted to let everybody know how much I appreciate everybody, though. So that's why I popped on here tonight, because I'm sitting downstairs doing stuff, and I thought, you know what, I got to go talk with my bee folks.
Yeah.
So
sometimes that helps.
Yeah.
And I know everyone in the, all the believers, all in the comments here, everybody's going to be praying for you, thinking about you, and you got that support, and I'm sure many, many more people, friends and family that you have, will be supporting you as well. So
DC probably missed it. He said, "Everything okay?" So
go back to the beginning.
DC, just to recap what's happened since Monday. Monday, my father-in-law passed away. Tuesday, my sister-in-law had a double mastectomy for breast cancer, and we also found out that my wife has melanoma on her leg, and we've got appointments for a surgical oncology center. So it's fantastic few days. Yeah, loads of sarcasm there. But yeah, I appreciate everybody in the prayers. That's so huge. So,
yeah.
But I'll be on next week, though. Next week it'll be one on Greg's
channel next week. Yep.
Okay. Well,
all right, man. Well, you take care. Get some rest.
Yeah.
All right, man. We appreciate you. We appreciate
you.
you.
Hang in there.
I'll see y'all.
All right. See you, Brian. Let's go to our next question here, or actually a super chat. Thanks, Highland Honey, for the super chat there. It says hashtag be the lighthouse. Appreciate that. Greg, your Nature's Image Farm hashtag has really taken off in the beekeeping community. It's pretty cool to see.
That's good. That goes back a while.
Yeah. George Ford said also $20. Appreciate it, George. It means
Thanks,
a lot.
George.
And I know people, it can be kind of people are like, some people think, oh man, why would I want to, this is a free platform and everything. Why would I spend money? But it really does mean a lot. It does help out so much. And, even the StreamYard, the platform we use for the live videos, it's a fair, pretty penny to actually, we actually buy the subscription to it so we can do some of the fun stuff we do in here. And that alone is they've actually gone way up in the price. So all these things definitely help us be able to do what we do. Lisa saw Lisa at the Alabama Beekeeping Association conference this past weekend. Lisa presented on making things out of products from the hive, like soaps and lotions and different things with honey and all different. She had all kinds. She did a great job with her class. And Lisa is she's just a good friend. Lisa is awesome. And if any of you have not had a chance to check out her channel, Grammy's Hives and Homestead, really good stuff. She's actually got the name trimmed down now, so it's easier to remember. It used to be Grammy Midwife's Homestead and all kinds of things. Now she's got Grammy's Hives and Homestead. Grammy does a great job, and her partner in crime, Deidre, is awesome as well. Deidre actually helped me with the technology in my class, getting set up and everything, because I had never done that before. So anyway, just great folks right there. So go check out her channel. And she also has a website, I think, I'm sure she probably has in her descriptions in her channel, where you can go get some of those awesome products she makes. Let's see, another question here, I think, or a comment. Yeah, this is a good comment from Eric here, Spirited Toad. He says he doesn't recommend doing full inspections. I think, especially this time of the year, if you roll a queen right now, you're in a world of hurt. That there is some wisdom in that. When I do my inspections now, it's if I'm not planning on making splits or really diving into the hive too much, I just pull out a frame or two here or there, make sure we have brood, make sure we got food, just kind of look at the overall health of the colony, and then I close it back up. I don't spend a lot of time pulling out every single frame. I think that's a word of the wise there for folks. There are times when you may need to do that, especially if you detect there's a problem. Like if I open up a colony and it smells funny, or there just aren't as many bees as I anticipate, or it just something looks wrong, then I might do a full inspection. But most of my colonies, I'm peeking in, see what's going on, and maybe a frame or two, and then I just move on. Any thoughts on that, Greg?
I think you got that's going to be. I love that idea for sure. For the majority, I think, of beekeepers, where it gets a little bit trickier is if you you've got fresh queens this year, everything's been looking good, right? I think some of the caveats would be, if you are putting a Formic treatment on, or something where there's a little more risk going on, I think you would want to go in there and make sure you've got eggs, or you've got brood in the colony afterward, just to make sure that there aren't any issues. Because if you did need to requeen, or you need to make a plan, you don't have a lot of time. I know for us, we've backed off of, to begin with, we're not every box, every frame, every time anyways. Throughout the rest of the year, there are things that we're looking for as we go through and do our inspections. That's the only way you can get through yards of 24 and 48. But as we get through this late in the year, I will be going in and digging in, and checking on brood nest size, make sure that I've got cat brood, see how big my overall brood picture is and food picture, so I can kind of plan accordingly. But I have a specific goal in mind to do that. I think what Spirit of Toad is likely referring to is, don't just be if you don't have a reason to, don't just be willy-nilly cracking lids and boxes and frames for no reason, because there's a greater chance of risk in rolling a queen late in the season. That could put you at a great disadvantage. But if you have a specific mission in mind to make sure you are queen right after a series of treatments, to look into the food situation of your colonies, then just know why you're getting in there, and just know it's getting late in the year, so there's a little more risk assumed for sure.
Great stuff, man. We've had some great questions tonight.
Great questions.
Here's another one from Mike Davis. Is there any difference in feeding fondant versus a sugar candy board?
Bruce, I don't know that you really got much into sugar candy boards in your neck of the woods.
I've never used them. I know Stan Gore has a really good sugar candy board that he uses. Stan's candy. I'm sure what he calls them, but Stan has
Canned
some
sugar brick,
sugar
soft
bricks,
sugar.
Stan soft sugar bricks. And apparently people love those. They have a really good experience with them. My understanding is that the principle is similar to the fondant as far as when and why you would use them. I've just never used candy boards before. I just started using the fondant and love it, so I haven't changed.
Yeah, I've used everything. I've not used Stan's product, so I can't speak to that. But we absolutely do not use sugar candy boards. We do not use sugar boats. We don't use dry sugar mountain camp anymore. In the past, we did, and we actually thought that what we were seeing was the bees consuming it. After years of observations, what we actually saw were two things. Number one, the bees spent a lot of time dragging it out of the colony as trash. And then the times when they were eating it, it would give them the squirts. And we would see that on the front of the hive, on top of the hive, out in front of the hive. The very first year that we switched from using sugar boards, sugar boats, and dry candy and went to fondant, we've never seen the squirts and that kind of dysentery, that upset gut. We've never seen that since then. So for me, there's a lot of reasons to consider a good quality fondant. Gut health, but also to prevent gut distress, I think is also a big thing. Outside of the fact, if you're using a fondant that is an inverted sugar, I mean, that is a huge leg up for the bees because they have to spend less time metabolizing those to get that sugar inverted into those two chains where they can metabolize that much faster. So is there a difference? I really do think that it is a night and day difference, but it's something that you've got to take a close look at and see what fits with your beekeeping practice and needs for sure.
Great question. Fort Wicks Forest says, any experience feeding with bananas in fall? You ever tried bananas in your hives, Greg?
I mean, I've eaten bananas next to my hives.
You ever tried to feed them bananas?
I've never. I can say I've never fed my bees bananas. No, negative.
There's a prominent YouTuber, fairly prominent YouTuber that I was talking to not long ago, and I don't know if he's talked about this on his videos or not, but he said, "Have you ever tried bananas in your colonies?" I said, "Nope." He said he tried it last year. He cuts the bananas in half and lays them, just the peel and all, just lays it on top of the frames as it goes through. Just takes them. It's pretty cheap. It's not expensive to get bananas. He said that he found that I think there was a significant increase in brood. It wasn't like a 3 frames increase in brood, but the colonies that he put bananas on when he went through his colonies had more brood in them. He said the bees just eat them up. They consume the bananas like crazy. They just get rid of them quickly. And he said he noticed an increase in brood production in the colonies where he put the bananas in there. So I might try it and see what happens. I know they say that the smell of bananas, like, if you eat bananas or, that smell like that ripe banana smell when they're angry. I always thought bees didn't like anything to do with bananas, but apparently they do. They will eat them. So I don't know. It's just a thought,
I've
but
never seen bananas trigger bees, but from a
Fort
cost
Wicks Forest,
standpoint, what I think about though, Bruce, Susie just came in over here. I'm going to ask her, hey, boss lady. Oh, she didn't like that. Mrs. Burns, question. Since you do all of the, let's say, food accumulating for the kitchen, what is the price of bananas per pound right now? Let's say Sam's Club, maybe. Okay, so the boss says between 57 and 67.
how many bananas in a pound?
That is, how many bananas are in a pound, do you think? 3-pound bundles, so there's probably 5 or 6. 6 and 8 to a bundle in a 3-pounder. Okay, so half a pound. So banana is probably, I don't know, a third of a pound, half a quarter.
If a 3-pound bundle would feed 8 colonies, or you cut them in half, so 16 colonies.
It'd be 16 colonies.
Well, I guess you could. Yeah, it wouldn't be too bad. Or I don't know. It's just to ask the question.
It's, like it's probably 50 to 75 cents in feed. I'm thinking, okay, what 50 to 75 cents in feed equates to, like, more than that in a liquid feed. So I'm thinking from a cost standpoint, that's if you're buying it in bulk, you're not too far off from buying ProSweet to feed to them. But there's got to be something else about the banana
I don't
that
know.
would make you want to do that. Because then
I've
what do you
never,
do? Like
I've
shove it
never.
in boxes, put a shim on. I mean, how do you? What's the application here?
I mean, I don't know. It's pretty. I don't know. I would just have talked to him. He just told me. He said he just tried it this year, put bananas and everything, and it seemed to help. So it's
Huh.
easy. I guess just cut it in half, slap it on there. So it might be worth a try. But to answer your question, Fort Wicks Forest, I have not tried it. Doesn't sound like Greg has either. But apparently, you've heard about it somewhere. I've heard about it before, but this one particular person told me that he seemed to he liked it. So it's not going to hurt anything to do it, and it's it's not going to hurt anything as long as the bees consume it. If they don't, I guess you could scrape it out. So I would. It's not going to hurt anything to try it. But he said the
Potassium?
bees
What's in a banana? Oh, let's look
potassium
it
is
up.
the big.
Let's look it up, Bruce.
Well, potassium is what they're beneficial for us, I believe. But anyway, I thought I might try it in a few colonies next year and see what happens. It's not going to hurt anything, but it's cheaper than fondant for sure. But I think I need the fondant through the winter. I'm not going to put confidence in them enough not to use my fondant. So
Bruce,
yes,
potassium, fiber, vitamin C, and vitamin. You ready for this? This is a real zinger. Vitamin B6.
okay.
That's all I got. Wasn't even that good. So,
Yeah. DC says Brees mine never bothered. They eat the crap out of them. I guess that means they like them. So yeah, it's crazy. So that's a thought. Who would have thought? But why not give it a shot? I don't know. Be worth an experiment to see. All right, let's see. I don't think it's going to hurt anything for sure. All right, this is really a good question, Greg, and I'm not sure I know the answer to this. He said, "What is the issue? I know they say don't feed during a Formic Pro treatment. What is the problem with feeding during a Formic Pro treatment?" This is from Sean Strassnider.
I don't know. Tom Nolan was out maybe 2-3 years ago, visited the farm, and kind of gave us. And Tom is with Not Apiary, which is the producer of Formic out of Canada. Tom came out and visited, kind of gave me a hands-on training in our yard here with the proper use of Formic. And so I think what I think of with Formic is the issue feeding during Formic. I think what they really recommend is you get these colonies actually fed up before the treatment, so that they are robust and they're healthier going into that kind of a treatment. If the colonies are starved out and are hungry and you put Formic on, I think that you're opening yourself up there for another stress point. And so Formic already kind of has a bad rap for exasperating other underlying things that are going on inside of the colony. So what is the real issue? So let's talk about feed for a second, if we could even do it in a second. When you talk about putting feed on, we're either talking about, if we're talking commercially, you're talking about a frame feeder or a bucket feeder. So if you're putting Formic pads on and you're putting in between your brood boxes, your queen's going to be pinned down below that bottom box. Everyone else is going to be going up into the top box. The question becomes, do you see your bees storing and putting away nectar with a Formic treatment on? If the answer is no, well, they're still feeding. Are they consuming everything inside of the colony and wiping out those stores? If that becomes a problem and there wasn't stores to begin with, you might be trying to put feed on a colony and treat them at the same time. You might be trying to do too much all at once for that colony. So what is the specific issue with feeding it? I don't know that there is a synergy between them feeding and the Formic, but I think it's more so that they recommend you feed ahead of putting your Formic treatment on, so the bees are healthier and can, I think, better withstand that exposure to the Formic. That's how I kind of think about it.
Yeah, I tend to agree. I really don't know the answer to the question. I probably should have asked that question to Tom when he was down here and I interviewed him. I thought of everything else, but I didn't ask him that question. I'm trying. Brian can do like 3 things at once. I'm on here trying to. Let's see here. Eric Spirito says he's been extracting honey, and anyway, just thought I'd make a little comment there. So, Yeah, I don't know. I would just kind of roll with it. Now, I do know that one thing Tom did say is that the first 3 days, 2 or 3 days, is when most of the formic gas is off, when it's most critical to kind of go by the rules as far as temperature and all the things that they say to do and not to do. So probably not as big a deal if you do after that. But once again, like Greg said, if you want, I think your bees to be as strong as possible before you slap formic on them. I don't think slapping formic on a weak colony is good for it at all. As a matter of fact, I don't think they recommend using it on nukes at all. You just want to have a nice, big, strong, robust colony of at least, a deep full of bees to be able to use it. That's my understanding anyway. Plus, you want to have the room, the space in the box. You want to make sure you have enough space for it to gas off and not just completely fumigate the bees. All right, let's see here.
Bruce, there's a comment there. Sourwood Farm. I had a colony that had not finished their top feeder when I put Formic on. Came back the next day, over 1,000 bees dead in a feeder. Dumped the syrup out, and it killed the grass for 2 years. I think that, and that's what I was saying.
Could be it.
Speaking, if you're using a frame feeder or a bucket feeder, different story. A hive top feeder, you got to think about one of the unknown tricks with Formic success is actually putting an extra box with frames on top every single colony. That extra headroom gives those bees another place to go and get out of the way. Imagine if you didn't have that headspace and all you had was a feeder, and those bees are trying to get up and get out of the way. They're going to be going up and getting into that feeder, and just they're going to be drowning themselves for sure. And I don't wonder if any of that formic vapor is able to, penetrate and actually absorb into the water at all, if that could create some kind of a gut issue for them. Frame feeder, not as big of a deal because there's a way less exposed syrup surface than a hive top feeder, and then like a bucket feeder, probably zero issue at all. But
yeah, there's some good comments here. Sourwood Farm says he thinks the formic super acidifies the surface and makes it toxic to bees. And then DC said, doesn't it kill the grass? I don't know. Those all sound like legitimate things.
Yeah, the sugar syrup definitely will smoke. Just regular sugar syrup will smoke the grass for quite a long time, and it creates a very funky, nasty smell over time too.
Here's a interesting comment back on the bananas. Fort Wicks came back with this. I asked about bananas based on something I had read. A University of Montana Master Beekeeper project by Catherine Davitt found that feeding bananas increased brood by about 18%. And I want to say that that's what my buddy told me as well. But I didn't know the numbers specifically. So anyway.
That's interesting.
Yep. Next question. We already did that one. That's the one we just did. Never mind. All right. Hello from North Idaho. I hear a ton about Apagard. Is there any reason Apalife VAR isn't discussed or showcased? I've used it in years past and had good results. What are your experiences? Greg, I am not familiar. I've heard of Apalife VAR, but I'm not familiar. What is the base of that? Is it thymol? Is it OA, or is it Amitraz? The Apalife VAR.
I'm pretty sure it's an Apagard treatment. It's a thymol based treatment. So it's more popular in Canada because they can't use Apagard. Apagard is not approved in Canada, but Apalife VAR is. So why that is, I don't know. But what I have heard is folks who have used both Apalife VAR and Apagard, they all seem to say, hands down, Apagard is way better than Apalife VAR. So,
yeah, I've never used it.
Experience with it.
Well, that was a good answer. I'm not sure. I've heard of it, but I've never really incorporated or tried to use it. Mark Zinner says $9.99 for the internet bill. Appreciate it, Mark. Yeah, I definitely can go towards that. I use that internet a lot with these videos and with this live stream stuff. So we sure appreciate it, Mark. Thanks for your support. All right. We got Brian Stauffer says, yes, just looking to understand if there are nuances people like or don't like about particular treatments. I'm a big supporter of rotating treatments. There's a lot of wisdom in that, I think. Greg, we can't go into an entire year's treatment program, but I know you obviously use OAV. What type of treatments do you use in your operation and why?
We like to lean on OAV when at all possible, but there's going to be times where that's not going to be enough. When we have to go in and do a little deeper work into the brood areas for mites, that's where we lean on Formic Pro and Apagard. I like them both. They both what I the things that I don't like about both of them are the same, and that's they can shut down brood, which is why we got to be careful when we use that. I've had times where both have worked beautifully, and I've had times where both of them failed catastrophically. And as I learned to understand what those details are and what that nuance is, has led me to our IPM, which is monitor for mites, try to keep them pinned back at 2%. If we can keep them at 2%, OAV has been phenomenal on keeping it at 2 or less. If it gets higher than that, if it gets to like 6% or 8%, that's when we really have to pull out the bigger guns and go to Formic. The challenge is making sure that the 3-day temperatures is going to be less than 85 degrees. Make sure that we're putting an extra box with frames above the colony to give them some more headspace. And then when we do that, those things are successful. The more I use Apagard, I got to admit, the less I like it. It's just there's this the instructions lead you to believe that there is a lot of room and a lot of buffer for use, and I have found it has as many hidden nuances as Formic does. So for me, for the amount of times I have to visit a colony, for the efficacy and for the price per colony, when I have to go in and hit it harder, we're going to go towards Formic, and we're going to make sure that we're doing that at a time where we don't need the colonies to brood, and that it's a much more cooler part of the season.
Good stuff, man. Personally, I've tried all of them pretty much. Not all of them, most of them. I've tried Apagard, OAV, Baroxan. I've tried some not, stuff that's off label, quote unquote. And my favorite treatment, honestly, is just OAV. That's my favorite. It's just so labor intensive. Even with the quick instant VEPs, it's still labor intensive. And so if I could just hit them like every week with that, for 5-6 weeks, then wait a month and then do it again throughout the year, to me, I just feel like it just, the bees, they seem more vibrant, more robust. If you hit them, go back in 10 minutes later after you hit them, they are calm. It's almost like a drug effect. I don't know if they're just trying to clean each other off or what, but the bees just look really good in my experience when I use OAV. And so as long as you're using enough of it and you do it often enough, I think it's pretty effective. That's my favorite treatment, but it's just not always feasible. And so I've tried some of the other things. Historically, I've had good results with Apivar. Last year, I had decent results, but then I had some that it didn't even touch the mites. Like, it just went out of control. They just exploded with more mites than I've ever seen. And so I've given that a complete break this year, but I've kind of leaned in, Bob Benny is going towards completely organic stuff. The Apagard, OAV, I think he's kind of leaning towards oxalic acid. That's what he really prefers. And Greg, I know you're purely organic now as well. So a lot of people are kind of trying to do that. As far as, Bob mentioned this, as far as he knows and believes, the mites can't grow a resistance to organic things. They tend to not grow a resistance to that. They can become resistant to chemicals, pesticides. They can become resistant to that, but they cannot become resistant to oxalic acid. Just, it burns their legs off basically. You can't become resistant to that, and things like that. And so that's the direction I would like to go. Not to say I won't use other things, but we got Apagard that's organic. You have oxalic acid that's organic, and Formic that's organic, as well as Hopguard, which I've heard is extremely difficult. It's kind of really scary to use that, but that's also organic from what I understand. But in Bob's presentation, he went through all of them and talked a little bit about them. There are a couple more quick questions here. We got this is a good question for people up north, I think, Greg, really for anyone. With how Formic shuts down queens, would you do Formic this late, or do you prefer to do it earlier in the season?
Well, we try to, I know we've talked about this kind of throughout the year, and it'll probably ring a bell for you, DC. But when we are talking about where we're at right now with our bees, it is largely based on where they were at the winter solstice. And if you can get in there at the winter solstice with OAV, then it seems that it takes an enormous amount of spring mite pressure off the bees. And when that happens, then it seems as though you can keep moving forward with OAV maintenance if you need it. If the mites are out of control early in the year, you can't beat around the bush and kick the can down the road with OAV though. That's where if you're going to use something like Apagard or Formic, doing it early in the year is nice. The challenge is though, it seems as though if you use something like that and it really just shuts the queens down, sometimes it's a double-edged sword. You have colonies that have mites. You don't know if there's viral transmission per se. Just because you have a colony that is loaded full of mites does not mean that there is significant viral transmission. And you can also say just because you don't have, and just because you have a low mite count doesn't mean that you do not have a high rate of viral transmission. That becomes the big challenge, because if you come in the spring of the year and you have high mites, you think, man, we got to get these under control before it gets way out of hand. The trouble is, if we shut those queens down too early, if those are honey producing colonies, they may not be to that nice size where they have the field force to actually be producers. So you're risking, yes, you have high mite counts. You don't know if there's viruses being transmitted. You put something like Formic on to knock the mites back, but if it's done at the wrong time or too hard, it may set that colony back from being a producer. But at least maybe they don't have mites. Fast forward into the summertime, it's way too hot to even be talking about Apagard or Formic, in my opinion. So now we're waiting in the fall time. Falls now are longer, drier, and warmer than they typically are. So now we are kicking the can down the road even further if we've been waiting for a big 1-2 punch from a treatment. So now we're getting into the 1st of October, mid-October, before we're putting Formic on. That's great, but not if you're at 10 or 12 or 14% mites already. You put Formic on, it's just probably the nail in the coffin at that point. So
yeah, DC said, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Just yes, it does crush the queens for sure, but it's the wheat and the tare. Sometimes we don't know which is worse here: the high mite counts that may or may not transmit viruses, or knocking the brood back. So what seems to be working here in our neck of the woods right now, if they are packing away fall flow, hopefully that they are. If not, we'll be feeding them heavily, getting them as healthy and get that phytogelin and everything just really moving forward with them, so that when it does cool off, the bees nutritionally are squared away. Then we'll put those treatments on, like Formic, if we need to. Now they're more resilient to withstand any of that. And now we're knocking the mites back. But we just need to make it, when we say organic, like this is not certified organic. This does not make anything cleaner or healthier in the colony. These are organic compounds. And really organic, what organic really means is carbon based. And the thing we do have to consider, and I think it is going to be coming down the pike, you ask any organic farmer of any kind who are using organic compounds in their practice, what they will tell you is tomato hornworms and everything else are starting to be less, they are resisting all those things that they have done within organic management when it comes to farming and gardening. So at some point, we have to consider how will this affect mites and everything else in the colony, even with organic compounds. Will it be less effective on them or not? I think that's yet to be seen.
Yeah, for sure. DC just comment there. He says, it's not just me. I was seeing that also with good winter and spring control. You have an easier control later in the season when it can get bad.
Yeah.
That is so key. And that's that's the trick. And I still haven't figured it out like I need to. But hopefully my bees will make it through winter. This is a real, I think we've kind of already answered this a little bit, but this, I know, Greg, you have pretty strong feelings about this.
What about you, Bruce?
For mite treatment, would you recommend Apagard? I used that. So here's what happened. And Greg, tell me if I'm wrong. Over the years, Amitraz was introduced to control mites years ago, and it was very effective. Amitraz, which is the base for Apivar, was found to be very effective for mites for a long time. However, it was not hard on the bees. They felt like for a long, compared to some of the other pesticides out there. The problem is it became abused, I think, by a lot of people. Everybody used it for so long. The commercial guys were using it, and everybody was using Amitraz-based products for so long that in the last few years, some of the mites have started to develop a resistance to it. And so, I didn't really believe that. I've used Apivar for several years with great results. Like it would just knock the mites out. The bees never skipped a beat. And then last year I ran into the situation where I had a few colonies that it worked on most of them, but there were a few that it just didn't even touch. The mites actually multiplied exponentially when I had the Apivar in there. And so the way I eliminated those mites, and I think I lost, the ones were ridiculous. I think I just lost those colonies. But I ended up putting Apagard in all my colonies last year, about this time of the year, maybe even a little bit. Like I think it was in September last year, and I think I saved several colonies by doing that. So right now, I would say Apagard for a couple of reasons. Number one, I just think the mites are developing a resistance to the Amitraz/Apivar products, and number two, once again, that's the Apagard is that organic. But you just gotta. Personally, I know some people are just kind of anti-Amitraz, anti-Apivar. I personally never had any issues in my colonies using that. It's almost as far as like the bee health, but the problem I have was it just was not as effective against the mites as it had been previously. So that's my opinion on it. Not to say I will never use it again in the future, but that's not in the future, in my immediate future game plan for now. But anyway, and there are some of the pesticides. I think Apivar somewhat, but the Apistan and whatever that Coumaphos and the what's the other one? The Mite check. What is it? Check Mite. What is that one called? The other one?
Check Mite and the Mite Away Quick Strips, but those are different. Those are different.
Well, Mite Away Quick Strips is Formic. The same as Formic, but there's two other chemicals: the Apistan, and the Check Mite, I think it's called, whatever it is. But those two, Bob Benny showed when he was at the conference the other day. He showed the interactions between different things. If you put two different things in your hive, it can really create some really bad interactions. And the Apistan and the Quick Check Mite, I think it was, those two are pretty strong interactions. Apivar is much less, and then the organics don't really have interactions much at all because they gas off. They're kind of organic, like especially even the Apagard has a strong smell, but I think it gases off pretty quick. It does get in the comb, but then it disappears fairly quickly. And so just a little bit of what I learned from, and you've talked about these things too, Greg, previously, the same principles. And Bob is really he does a really good job of explaining that. And he talked about it the other day. Great question. We are getting towards the end of the questions here. Thanks for the super chat, Foster, for $9.99. Great chat, he says. Thanks so much for the support. Sean says, Sean Strassnyder says, hashtag be the lighthouse. Thanks so much, Sean, for the $5 super chat. We appreciate it. And let's see, Utah Bee Man Glade Sessions. He just quickly gave his protocol here, and Glade has some wonderful bees. He does a great job out there in Utah. Apagard in the spring, OA sponges for summer, Formic Pro for fall, OAV fall, winter, or anytime the hive is broodless. So that's a pretty solid strategy there. Sounds like he treats about 4 or 5 times a year, and I think Glade has it kind of ironed in out there, kind of dialed in, so to speak, and does a great job with his bees out there. If you haven't checked out Glade's channel, I know he's way out there in Utah, but the principles he teaches many of them can be applied globally. He does a great job explaining what's going on with his bees, and he does a really good job. The Glade was one of the 3 guys from Utah that came to help me harvest this summer. Had a good time doing that, and he is a very fundamentally sound beekeeper, and he has a lot of good good content out there. So if you're interested, he also has the heart of a teacher, and he does a great job explaining what he's doing. So, Greg, we are basically right at 2 hours in almost, and it's been a wonderful chat tonight, man. We glad to have Brian on earlier. It's hate to hear what's going on, all the tough things he's going through, but it's been it's just been a tough couple of weeks, I think, for, I got to put this comment up before we close. Bruce, what are you going to do with all your free time if not going to almonds? Yeah, I hear you. A lot of free time. That was those were basically the almond preparation. That was late nights. It was way more than what I wanted to do, and just yeah, I don't have a lot of free time. If anything, I got more colonies when I quit going to almonds, so I have plenty to do. But anyway, it's been a really tough couple of weeks, I think, for our country, for the globe globally. It's been a tough couple of weeks. Just all kinds of seeing people get polarized in a lot of ways. It's been kind of hard to watch the events of the last few weeks here, but we just have to know that there's a greater power in charge, and we need to just keep that in mind, I think, and just look forward and look ahead, and put the past behind us, and anyone that we have in our lives that has affected us in a positive way. The way I look at it, when my dad passed away, he left a great legacy, and the way I look at a legacy is basically that legacy is kind of what lives on in us. Anybody that we've known, whether it's a personal person or anybody that we've known of or learned from in any way, the way that we keep that legacy alive is that we take the positive things we learn from other people and we incorporate them into our lives. And I know that Brian is doing that, with his family member that just passed away. And, those, whether you agree with Charlie Kirk or not, I tend to agree with pretty much everything he says, a lot of what he said. And I've watched some of his videos. I've learned a lot, I think, from him, and hopefully I can just approach people with love and with a spirit of, let's just talk it out, so, but just anybody that, just try to be positive and take positive things and incorporate them in your lives. And, that's kind of how I feel about that. But, as far as what's going on here in Alabama, I'm going to be feeding, treating, just trying to stay on top of things. Once again, I mentioned earlier in the video, some of you may not have been in yet. I am going to I've got a couple more videos to produce that I have footage for, and then I'm going to take a step back for a little while and just kind of refocus on my channel and see what exactly I want to do with it. We're going to continue to do the stream team for sure, but kind of take a different angle, see if I want to keep doing the same thing or maybe change it up a little bit. I've been a little tug on my heart to do something a little bit different. It's not going to be, I'm still going to be me, but I think I want to take a little different approach, and that'll become clear if and when I decide to do that. But I'm going to take a little step back, maybe not quite as many videos here for a couple of months, just to see what I want to do and roll with it. And hopefully it'll come out the other side with an improved, more streamlined approach. And so if it can help everybody that it already helps, plus more people. I'm trying to see how I can help other people become better beekeepers. And I want to be a good example first and really figure out my own beekeeping thing too. I've been trying to take you along on the journey. I've been doing that, but like right now, I've got bees that are full of mites. I got bees that have too many mites, and I've been trying to stay on top of it. So I've just got to get a better strategy together. And that's what I need to focus on right now is those bees, get them healthy and get into winter. So that's what's going on here at Bruce's Bees here in Southeast Alabama. Greg, why don't you bring it on home for us?
Just want to encourage everyone to just, stick with it. I know it's a pumpkin spice season, and which means the Mariah Carey "All I Want for Christmas" is probably all over the airwaves starting today or yesterday, and you're about ready to just call it quits for the year. But just keep in mind that a lot of us are in that same position. But if we just keep staying the course and digging in and doing that work, I think you'll be glad that you did there. Bruce, you're just talking there about legacy, and think about how powerful this network, this community is, kind of all together. You share in the highs and the lows, and it makes such a difference in the lives of each other. Our friend Brian's going through a lot right now, and the fact of the matter is, there's folks listening to this right now who are going through a lot, and tomorrow there will be somebody else, and the next day and the next day, and that's somehow all a part of this thing called life. We talked about a legacy. You think about, when it is our time to go. We've said it before, but when the Bible says it's appointed unto man once to die and the judgment thereafter, it doesn't say we have some say in that, or we know when our number is pulled. But I think as a husband and a father, as the head of a house, as a leader, you want to somehow you want your time here on earth to matter somehow. Well, we have that great commission to go out and share the gospel. We want to feel that being fulfilled, and that might look different for everybody. I'm reminded of something that our pal Tennessee Tim McCandless once told me, and I've used this line over and over and over again, especially when we talk about legacy. But did you know that you can count the seeds in an apple, but you can't count the apples in a seed? Just think about that for a second. Just planting that seed in someone's life, or someone planting a seed in your life, eventually that tree does grow. Sometimes that tree drops fruit, and then there's 2 and 3 and 4 and 10. Next, there's an orchard blooming inside of you that is your life, that is full of apples and full of seeds, that when you are touching others and you're entering into their life and a part of their journey, you're doing the same thing. We're planting these orchards, that tree that bears good fruit, that you will know a tree by its fruit. Somehow we are all touching each other in those ways and making a difference. And I think that's what it means for a true legacy. Somehow you were a part of these beautiful divine orchards being planted in the soil of the heart, in the spirit and the soul of somebody else, that there is that fruit for them to do the same thing for somebody else over and over and over again. So that's what I would say to folks is, there might be some tough times, but just know that that darkest hour is just before dawn. So hang in there. Please keep Brian and his family in your thoughts and prayers as they kind of dig through all of these things too. But just know that if you're in that dark spot, you're not alone, that there is a lighthouse, and his name is Jesus. Bruce, next week, Wednesday, 8 p.m. Eastern, will be on one of our three's channel.
Your channel.
It's going to be on my channel. I'm going to see if I can pass that baton probably on to Brian, get him back in the reins here. But we'll look forward to seeing everybody next week, 8 p.m. Eastern, on another Stream Team Beekeeping Chat. If you're in the Ohio, West Virginia, Pennsylvania area, looking forward to seeing you Saturday, the 27th, along with our pal Fred Dunn there in Woodsfield for a great learning opportunity. Until next time, we want to remind you to be the lighthouse and be the change you want to see in this world. We'll see you next time. Thanks for watching.
Let's see if I can figure this out. All right, here we go. See you guys.